there's something I don't think I heard you talk about, and you have talked about how important it is to have the guides and the angels and archangels and the intelligence and stuff. But I think it's also important to recognize the significance of consciously calling for the highest help available in each one of those categories. And because somehow consciously calling for it makes it happen better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then periodically, as you grow and as you raise your own level of work and energy and stuff, call for it again. And you keep your help, I mean, you get more and more help and better help and more powerful help with the conscious asking. I asked when I went, did you do me a treatment last night? Not that you knew of.
Not that.
Okay, well, I went to bed last night asking for help for this back condition. It seems to be gone this morning.
That's cool.
Right. And I thought that was really neat. So I stuck in, if there are any divas for bad backs coming in.
Right, yes. Good.
It's really astonishing.
Yeah, I did something on my leg. I was thinking in the back of my leg that I've been working. And I did the same thing I asked before I left Ohio. But because it was really bothering me, and I haven't had any problems with it at all since I asked for it.
Yeah, and it was just,
And that's another thing.
we forget to ask.
We forget to ask, and also, you know, make sure that you would ask for a healing angel or for a healing being or whatever to go with the person after you're finished treating them to continue with facilitating the process to its completion, because that will happen, and that's a nice, powerful additional technique that you can get possibly. Okay, any other questions here? How did we run in here? Oh, it's only 11 o'clock. Hallelujah.
It's also nice for the person, for you to tell them that you've asked that a healing angel to go with them. If people are into angels, and that's becoming, I work with them all the time, I have for years, and it's becoming very, very more and more popular. And people are somehow touched in their hearts to know that they have this angel going with them to continue the healing energy, and what that seems to do is remind them that this is happening, so they don't forget, so they fall out of the old pattern of, oh, I'm sick, oh, my back hurts, oh, my foot hurts, oh, my knee hurts, and oh, I'm never going to get well, because they are constantly reminded there's an angel there, a healing
That's a good point.
angel.
I'm going to cover real quick here, since we seem to have time, hallelujah. Entities and possession and stuff like that. Okay. This is another freshly typed chapter, so it's freshly on my mind. So
Separate
one of the first series of attunements that I did out here, and there were a whopping 2 people in the class, and both of them wound up being really cool and becoming good friends, 2 young men. And one of them brought his girlfriend, and they were both fairly clairvoyant, and they were definitely working on their clairvoyant capabilities and expanding them more and more. And some of you know who they are from the other classes. But time came to do the second degree attunement process, and did the first one the day before. And I started with this one particular gentleman, and immediately after I charged myself up and gone through the invocative prayer and all that, immediately after I placed my hands on this man's head, this intense just fear shot through me and gripped me. Right? And there was just this resounding voice in my head: you can't do this, no, you can't do this, this isn't right, you can't do this, this isn't right. And this to me was a rather stunning thing. You know, I mean, I'd done Reiki for quite a while, and this was not my first attunement by any stretch of the imagination, but it was early on in my doing this. And it really made me wonder. You know, I sat there with my hands on this guy's head, stood there with my hands on this guy's head for a while, you know, and thought through what process was going on and what process was happening here. You know? And I reasoned out, perhaps he should be happy that he had somebody that was into Hermetic magic for a while or something, so I had all of those other thought processes to fall back on, you know. But I reasoned out that Reiki had never felt like this, that the Reiki guides had never felt like this, that, you know, I'm not doing the attunement anyway. The only thing that I'm doing is putting my hands sort of in the right place, or kind of blending my energy field to a certain extent, you know. So if they didn't want the attunement to happen, you know, that they probably wouldn't communicate that by gripping me with fear and screaming it into my ear, you know. And so I decided to, you know, with that in mind, to go on and to complete the attunement procedure. And I figured, you know, if nothing happens, nothing happens. But we'll see. And it was a really intense one, and it's very difficult to describe. When I came around front and I was planting the symbols into the hands in front, something just really shot out of the heart chakra, and that was it. You know, I kind of felt the area being sort of mopped up and all of that. And I got done and I said, I did the other guy, and I said, would you like to discuss this in private, you know? And he said, no, okay. And so, so I said, well, here's what I think happened. I said, my guess is that you had something stuck to your heart chakra. First degree attunement doesn't deal a lot with the heart chakra, so it probably hung on by the skin of its teeth yesterday during the attunement process, but the second degree process does affect the heart chakra a great deal. So chances are it couldn't hang on by the skin of its teeth in this one. I said, I thought that guides, angelic presences, whatever, removed it while I was planting the symbols in your hands, standing directly in front of you. And then I could feel it, you know, being taken away, and the area kind of cleaned up energetically. And when I got finished saying all of this, I had the other man's girlfriend watching, because I was still vehemently studying the attunement procedures at this point. And she said that she saw, you know, essentially exactly the same thing, and that it was, you know, really cool to watch. I'm like, well, it wasn't really cool to do. But, so she had this, you know, oh, you should have seen it. They ripped it and taken to this huge legion, you know, all that. And I'm going, oh, yeah, right. So that's one experience with that. Okay. Another one comes from a class that I was doing in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I was going around this circle of people, and it was.
Excuse me, when did it leave? At what point in the attunement?
Right when the hands were open in front.
When the hands were open.
And it was a second degree class, and I was, for some reason I wasn't doing first and second for this group at one time. I'd come back to do second degree, because they were sort of a tight-knit group, and there were quite a few of them. And I'm going around in this horseshoe of chairs. There wasn't quite enough room to make a circle because there were so many people at the center in Erie. And this one guy was sitting kind of in the middle of this crowd on the right hand side, which is the side that I started off on. And the closer I got to this guy, the more thoughts kept entering my head, like you know, gee, you know, the people across the way are getting really uncomfortable. This is really taking a long time. I've got a lot of people to go. You know, maybe I should hurry up a little bit. And, you know, the attunement will take anyway. I mean, you can't screw up an attunement. You know, blah blah blah. You know, those were the kind of thoughts going through my head. So that when I reached this one particular guy, I was so completely convinced of that I thought that I've got to go faster. You know, those people are just extremely uncomfortable. So, you know, I whipped through this guy's attunement, and I went on. And the second I moved on to the next person, I was like, what the hell was I doing? You know. You've all heard me talk about energy and attunement processes and stuff like that. You know that I say, you know, you can throw away all the printed matter and it all comes down to the energy. Well, you know, when your job is this job, it all comes down to how effectively you can perform an attunement, you know. So I take that really seriously, you know, and if it takes a long time, bring a pillow, you know. So I noticed that the further I got away from him, the more that diminished, you know, and he's the only one that I didn't fully take my time on. And I got across from him, and I was still thinking about that, and I thought I should really go back, you know, and get him. And there was an obstruction in between me and him at that point. And the second I moved on the other side of that obstruction, and I still had that thought, you know, huge rush of information. Oh no, it's not important. You know, it's blah blah blah. You know, and the further I moved away, and the less influence was there, then I was back to my normal thought frame. You know, so I decided, you know, screw it, I'm going back anyway. And so, at the end of this thing, I finished the last person, and I went back and I redid this guy's attunement. And I was standing in front of him, and again, I was planting the symbols into the hands, And I stand up when I do that. Some people bend down. I stand up. And I looked at his face, and staring at me was the most horrifying face that I had ever seen. And I mean, it was scary. You know, so that was pretty clear to me what was going on at that point. You know, took my time. I did the attunement. I looked a few times. I didn't see him there. I didn't see that same very powerful, evil, malice-looking, face. I didn't see that entity remaining there. So I thought, okay, keep with the class. So we finished up the class. And afterward, he came up to me, and I was sitting, packaging up materials and talking to people and stuff. And he waited until people were pretty much done talking to me. And he came up and he said, I'm curious as to why you did me twice. And I said, oh, well, I kind of rushed through you the first time, and I just didn't think of it. But I just thought that I should go back and do you again. I didn't think it was as powerful as it could be, or whatever. He said, oh, the second one was definitely, I felt a lot more good. And so he leaves, and he gets like 2, 3, 4 blocks away, and he turns around and he comes back. And he just says, I just felt like I should come back, like there's more to talk about. And so he kind of tells me what had been going on in his life, and things were not good, and he could pretty much tell the point at which this thing attached itself to him, and he was very sensitive to all of that. And and so I said, oh well, okay, how about why don't you just hang around and we'll do a session? And I usually work alone, quite honestly, when I do sessions. Maybe I'm just really independent, I don't know, but I find that usually other people get in my way. That I want to go somewhere and they're obstructing that in some way. So I like to work alone. And in this one instance, this center owner, who's a very good healer, I just asked me if he could join this and if he could watch. And so I said, yeah, just stay on the ankles out of my way. That could have been nicer, I guess. And so I was working on this guy for quite a while. And we got done and we compared stories. And what the center owner saw and I pretty much do it all with my eyes closed. And what my experiences were completely synchronous. And it wound up being several things attached to this guy, and one of this good old one here, and he did smoke at that time. And not all of them, the energy would leave, the guides would take them away, and then he would pull them back into him. And this was one of the only times when I ever used any kind of willed healing type techniques. And what I did was, as it became clear to me that he wasn't cutting the cords, I sort of cut the cords for him, and I sealed the ends of each cord with a choku ray, so that he couldn't reestablish that link. And that was a very interesting, very powerful session. The third one I'm going to tell you about comes from a class in Rockford, Illinois, and that is. There was this lady there who had been hearing voices. Hang on.
Jeff, before you go on,
okay.
What do you do to the area after you have had that kind of entity released?
I don't worry about it. Let the guys take care of it.
Okay. So you just
I take it back. That thing in Erie, that was big enough that I smudged the heck out of the place. But
because I do a lot of cleansing, but I just wondered if there was something in addition you do, because, and I asked those to be returned to the light or to their right place in the universe. But what you're talking about is just giving me the willies. I haven't had anything like that ever, but I mean, just. I just was curious what you did.
I did smudge after the one in Pennsylvania. I mean, that freaked me out enough. That was where I was going to sleep, too.
Brave.
So we pretty much decided to
or sleep somewhere else.
Yeah. The third one, as I said, was in Rockford, Illinois. It was up there, and there was this girl who was taking a class. I don't remember which class it was. I don't remember if it was the first or second grade or her both. But there was an odd number of people, so I wound up pairing up with someone, and lo and behold, I wound up pairing up with this lady